In this lesson, we're going to finish up our smoke particle system using the particle flow. Okay, so here's where we left off in our last lesson. So what we want to do at this point is we want to actually get more of a smoke-like behavior. This is coming straight out of the window, and it's really not billowing upward like smoke would. So let's go ahead and get started with this. Let's open up our particle view and take a look at what we've got so far. So we've really just adjusted our berth, and we're pretty happy with the amount of particles that we're getting and the timing that all of the particles are being birthed. Now I want to go ahead and keep this as position icon because I want to come out of this, and I gave it the shape of the window here. So this is okay. We could adjust our speed if we like. So let's hit play on our playback and just kind of look at those particles as they're coming out. To me that might be a little fast. So let's go ahead and take this down to 200. And if you want to experiment with some variation, you could do that as well. So I'll do like 50 variations. So that way I get some particles that are coming out 50 units faster than our initial speed, and then like maybe 50 units slower than our speed here. So that way we get a little bit of a variation. Okay, so already that's looking much nicer. So let's talk about our direction. How can we get our smoke to rise up out of the window while keeping our emitter in this position for our window? Well, what we can use is a force in this case, and we're going to use wind to actually make this smoke come out and then billow up into the air. So let's go ahead and close our particle view in this case, and we're going to actually create a force inside of our scene. So let's go to Create Panel, and we're going to go to Space Warps, and the first thing that you'll see is Forces. And in here we'll have several different forces that we could choose from, but in this case we just want wind. So let's go ahead and create this in our scene, and I'm just going to click and drag anywhere in here. And the wind, it doesn't really matter where it's positioned or how big it is. The only thing that matters is the actual direction of the wind. So in this case our wind is going to be pointed straight up, and that's really what we're looking for here. Now you can rotate this emitter and get a different reaction if you like, but seeing how this is pointing straight up, we're just going to stick with that. So now that we've dragged this wind inside of our scene, you'll notice that nothing is happening to our particles. And the reason that is because this force, this wind, is not associated with our particle flow source system. So let's go ahead and select that. We're going to go to our particle view. Now you could do this a couple of different ways. You could actually click on particle view, or you can hit 6 on the keyboard to bring that up as well. Okay, so we have our event, and we want to actually add this force to our event. So we're going to go down to our depot, we'll select force, and we're going to click and drag this into our event. And we want to add this to the event. We don't want to replace anything, so we want to put it in a place where we get this blue line. So I'm just going to put it right underneath rotation. And let's go ahead and add this wind to this force operator. Okay, so you'll see that we have force 001 and it still says none. So what we have to do is go to our parameters panel and add that wind force. So let's hit add, and then we're going to click on our wind. And now that we can see that this smoke is now being affected by this wind here. So let's zoom out just a little bit here, and let's take a look at these particles. And those are growing up pretty high into the air. That's really, really high there. We can adjust that here in just a moment. So let's go ahead and hit play. And you'll see that this smoke is coming out of here pretty quickly, and then that wind is really zipping those particles. So let's go ahead and pause this. Just click anywhere in here. You can hit pause there. And what we're going to do is we're going to adjust the wind, because the wind is what's really making it take off out of that window. So let's select our wind, and let's go ahead and close our particle view, because the only thing that we can modify about the wind inside of our particle view is just the influence. So we're going to close this out, and with our modify panel selected and our wind selected, we can see that we have our parameters for this wind. So let's take our strength down, and you'll notice that our particles will begin to kind of lower. So let's bring this down here, and what this is going to do for us is actually make this slow down just a little bit. So let's hit play on this, and you'll see that our smoke comes out, and it's still going kind of fast. So let's take our strength down, and let's do like 0.3. Let's just type that in there. So this smoke is coming out, and we've got our wind taking off with our particles. So this is looking okay here. And you could change the type of wind. So if we went, right now we're on planar and we're getting this type of reaction. So let's look at what spherical looks like. And you'll see that this really slows down our particle system altogether, and it actually pushes this wind or this smoke off in a direction as if wind is kind of hitting it and pushing it off over here. And I really like how this is working here, how that looks. So let's go ahead and just stick with that. Okay, so let's hit pause there. And we're pretty happy with our behavior so far, so let's just work with a couple more things. Let's go all the way out to 100, and let's say that you want these smoke particles to kind of dissipate and die off. So let's go to our particle view. So let's select that PF source there, make sure that our particles are selected, and go to our particle view. And let's go ahead and add in a delete operator here. So let's go ahead and click that and drag that in there. And you'll notice that delete gets rid of all of our particles, and you're probably thinking, why would we want to delete particles if we're trying to create them? Well, delete, what we can actually do is control which particles it actually deletes. So with delete selected, let's go to the remove section of our delete, and we're going to do by particle age. So once we hit that, you'll notice that we get our particles back, and you'll notice that we don't have quite as many particles. Now what we have in here is lifespan 60, and we have a variation of 10. So what this means is any particle that is over 60 frames old will die. And then we have a variation to where we have some that will live longer, and then we have some that will live shorter, give or take 10 frames. Okay? So as we play this, you'll see that our particles begin to die off here. And you know, this is kind of a limited reaction. Usually you can see smoke for a long time. So let's go ahead and take this up here. Let's go to 80. And I might be okay with this. It's getting a little bit spread out. So we can actually adjust our material to actually make it look like it dissipates and then ultimately just disappears. There's really, the reason that you would want to delete some particles out is because of the look, and then also because if you have too many particles on the screen at once, you could have some issues with your computer's memory. So you might see some things starting to chug on your computer, and you just might want to take down the amount of particles, or you might want to try deleting some of those particles. So I'm pretty happy with the way this is looking so far. And if we go to our camera view, which is what we're going to see in our render anyway. So we can go ahead and hit play on this and just kind of see how that's looking. Now, if you see this smoke here, and it's not really what you're looking for, you could go ahead and adjust that force. So let's say you wanted it to go ahead and go straight up. So we can go to our wind force here, go to our perspective, and we can switch this back over to our planar type instead of spherical. So I'm actually going to want to look for this going straight up, seeing how we're going to be in this view whenever we render this out. So we'll have our smoke, and again, that's really, really fast. So we can take our decay up, take our strength up a little bit more, and just kind of get that overall look that we're trying to get here. Now, if you want to adjust like turbulence, you can really mix up those smoke particles. So let's hit play on this, see what it looks like. And you'll get a little bit of spinning and rotation in those particles, and it'll really look sporadic. Okay. So whenever we're doing like fire and smoke, we really want kind of a chaos type look here. So let's adjust our strength just a little bit more and hit play on this. And I'm going to be okay with this. So let's go ahead and just leave this the way it is. And what we're going to do in the next lesson is actually go ahead and set up the actual look of our smoke by giving it a different shape and then also applying a material to our smoke. So we'll do that in the next lesson.